The Democrat amendment in nature of substitute includes provisions to increase irresponsible existing civil monetary penalties by a factor of 5 for violations of the Occupational and Safety Health Act, and by a factor of 9 for violations of the Fair Labor Standards Act. My amendment would strike these provisions in the bill, which increase certain workplace safety penalties by a whopping 512% and a wage and hour penalty by an astonishing 900%. These provisions are yet another not so thinly veiled shakedown of employers that would unfairly punish job creators still reeling from the impact of the pandemic and a sluggish Biden-Pelosi economy. To be clear, committee Republicans do not condone employers that violate important labor laws. We have always supported the authority of OSHA and the Wage and Hour Division to hold bad actors accountable through enforcement. In fact, Congress voted to increase OSHA and FLSA penalties significantly and index them annually for inflation as part of the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2015, which was done while President Obama was in office and before I got elected in Washington. What Democrats are proposing, however, is a massive and inappropriate policy change intended to appease their allies in big labor who have long argued that existing penalties do not ensure employer compliance despite evidence to the contrary. For instance, with regard to workplace safety, occupational injury and illness rates have significantly decreased over the last several decades, declining by more than 46% since 2001. It also appears that Democrats have included these radically inflated penalties in their amendment in nature of substitute to help pay for the sweeping socialist proposals that we are considering today. This is what happens when the budget reconciliation process is used to make policy. I am disappointed that committee Democrats are attempting to slip this extreme and unnecessary penalty scheme into their bloated $3.5 trillion bill without any consideration of how it will impact job creators and workers. This provision will only embolden OSHA and the Wage and Hour Division enforcement agents to target employers who will be hesitant or unable to afford to contest these huge citations. With regard to the new FLSA penalties, these disproportionate fines should not apply to small businesses who still face current law penalties in these cases. Just last week, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported anemic job growth far below economists' expectations in its monthly employment situation summary. Small businesses make up 99.9% of U.S. firms, and they employ almost half of all U.S. employees, accounting for 2/3 of net new jobs. These job creators need certainty from federal policymakers as they recover from COVID-19. These excessive and punitive fines will place unsustainable costs on small businesses. Committee Republicans understand that an unprecedented increase in FLSA fines will not help create jobs, and the burdens of unreasonable punishments, coupled with overzealous enforcement by overfunded federal agencies, will be felt most strongly by the smallest of establishments. It is unconscionable that at a time when businesses are struggling to recover from this pandemic and more than 8.4 million Americans are out of work, the committee Democrats would use this opportunity to unfairly target job creators. I urge my colleagues to adopt this amendment and remove these extreme and harmful penalties in the midst of the nation's economic recovery, and instead keep them at the inflation-adjusted levels in current law. Keeping in mind that we're talking about small businesses. As I mentioned, 99% or more of businesses are small businesses. Let's put a face to those people. They're people in our community. They're our constituents. And I tell you what, having worked in a factory, having know a lot of people in my community, these are good, hardworking people. And I believe the best of my constituents. And if people not supporting this, I would find it hard to believe that the Democrats on this committee don't believe their constituents that run small businesses are good, hardworking people and shouldn't be penalized by this kind of overzealous funding to encourage agencies to go out and create and look for issues in their businesses. Thank you, and I yield back.